This is kind of a tale of two halves. So we're going to first have gentleman Nick Good from Virgin Media come up, and then the back half we have a couple of gentlemen from Atlassian that'll tell an equally compelling story. So, but without any further ado, I'll bring Nick up and talk about making a difference in the enterprise.
Great, thanks, Ken. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to tell you a story today about social software development, which is something we kicked off a couple of years ago now in Virgin Media. By social software development, we don't mean social just because we've attached a Twitter handle to it. We mean social in terms of true interaction between business and IT to deliver software change. So what I'll walk you through today is where the program came from, why we decided it was a good thing to do, the value we got out of it, because we did get a lot of value out of it, how we went about it, probably more importantly to you guys where JIRA fits in, because without JIRA we couldn't have done any of this, and also a bit about what we're going to do next. Move on. But first, a big obligatory corporate slide. Virgin, I take it most people know who Virgin are. Virgin Company is Richard Branson. Probably not so many know about Virgin Media, UK-based cable and TV operator. Possibly you might know Liberty Global. Yeah, Liberty Global now own Virgin Media as of about June of this year. So they acquired us in the first 6 months of 2013. So although we are still a Virgin branded company, we are part of the Liberty Global group now. Virgin Media is still the only quad play provider in the UK, providing broadband TV, landline phone and mobile phone services. Our fibre optic network is the pride and joy of the company, still providing the fastest broadband speeds to UK homes. The 100 meg on there is incorrect, it should say 120. Our TV offering underpinned by the new TiVo box, which is a Californian-based company just down the road from here, I believe. And also we do the phone stuff as well. So back to the story for today. So where did the program come from? It was probably about 2 years to the day that I got a call from our CTO who said, Nick, I've got an opportunity for you. So, okay. He said, the General Executive Council have been discussing the business inefficiencies that they feel there is within Virgin Media, and they want it sorted. And they think some of that is down to how we've provided them with technical solutions. So, okay, fair enough. So he said, we'd like you to try and improve the business, save some OPEX, and improve technology at the same time. So, okay, so you've already branded as a bit of Grim Reaper if we're going to be saving OPEX, so we're going to be slash and burn merchants. Okay, well, we've done worse. So he said, but there's more. They've also been discussing the perception that my IT department has within Virgin Media, and words like slow to react, difficult to do business with, not understanding our requirements were words that were used. So if you can fix that as well, that will be absolutely awesome. So great, so on the one hand you want us to slash and burn, on the other hand you want us to get them to thank us for doing it. Fuck, that's going to be really, really hard. So I put the phone down, and after several bouts of kind of general hysteria, the fog started to clear a bit, and we decided, right, okay, we'll give it a shot. So I called him back and said, if we're going to do this, we're going to need some pretty serious stuff to make it happen. He said, that's fine, let me know what you want, and we'll see what we can do. So, knowing that was pretty much a blank sheet of paper, and knowing that Virgin Media is very geographically dispersed, I know geographical in the UK context doesn't really compare to America, but it still feels big to us. We were going to need some pretty serious transport options. So we thought, well, in that case, let's get hold of our friends at Virgin Galactic and see if they can provide us with some transport. That was in the days that the other Virgin companies would actually give us the time of day because we were part of the same group. Also, if we're going everywhere, we're going to need the keys to the city. We've got to access all areas because we're going to have to be able to get into every nook and cranny of Virgin Media. And while we're at it, you don't ask, you don't get. We might as well ask for shitloads of cash too. But what did they give us? A little bit different. They gave us a van, they gave us a map, and they gave us a little bit of cash. Now, unfortunately, I'm joking about the van. They wouldn't give us a van either, but I couldn't bring myself to put a cut price train ticket on the slide. That was just too depressing. So, but what they did also, in fairness to say to us, was we will give you the cream of the crop of the technical analysts within the IT department to help make this happen. So that, oh yeah, some good technical people, that might help too. So we had a chat with them, and we explained to them the small challenge that lay ahead of us. And we explained to them that to try and do that, we were thinking we'd have to pretty much go on the road forever, and therefore they'd be spending their entire lives in a hotel and would have to say goodbye to their partners and their children. So pretty much all of them said no. So we ended up with the best of the rest. But with the best of the rest, we did deliver quite a lot of stuff, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about next. We don't describe them as the best of the rest, by the way. Well, not to their faces anyway. So I'm going to flip straight to the value that we got out of the program, and this is just a list of the different places that we went to in Virgin Media. So a lot of the acronyms won't mean much, the point being that we covered everything from back office, front office, engineering, networks, corporate support, the whole lot in one form or other. And there's an expression in the UK about painting the Forth Road Bridge. I guess it might be similar to painting the Golden Gate Bridge. You start at one end, by the time you got to the other, you've got to go back to the beginning and start again. And we have had to do some of that. But the point is, we covered a lot of ground in the first 12 months. But in terms of the value we got, and there's some fairly sizable numbers there, 22 separate exercises for our 3 field teams, as we call them. They delivered 400 separate technical changes, and bear in mind that our remit was to try and find small things that could be done really quickly. Obviously, there was no remit of re-engineering the entire world. That just wasn't going to work and was going to take too much money. So try and find small things that would make a big difference. And the big difference, we qualified in lots of different ways in terms of the benefit, because everything that we found had to have an identifiable benefit. There wasn't anything like, oh, it's good for customer experience and all that sort of airy-fairy stuff. It had to be concrete. So it needed to save time, whether that was calls, trucks, or avoiding manual repetition of tasks. Sometimes it could actually be saving direct costs, as in stuff we didn't need to buy as a company. Sometimes it was actually generating new revenue, or more like protecting unbilled revenue. But when it all got added up, it came to a huge amount. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to put the actual numbers on the slide in terms of what we saved, but to give you an indication, the return on investment in terms of what the program cost in year 1 was around about 550%. So across all different types of benefit, because they all get monetized, that's quite a return. And that was around about 230% of our expected target and about 150% of our stretch target. So year 1 was absolutely fantastic. Year 2, obviously still in progress, but is heading in the same general direction. So similar sort of number of different visits executed, looking like a similar number of opportunities in terms of what we forecast into the end of the year. The square brackets are the forecasted figures. Similar amount of time, but the value of the direct cost saved and the value of the revenue has gone up by a lot. So this year's return on investment, bearing in mind the budget was the same, the targets were a lot bigger, but the budget was the same. The return on investment for year 2 will be about 900%, and we're looking to still deliver about 150% of the stretch target. So we've managed to up everything. I'll come back to the NPS score shortly, but in terms of proving that we could simplify operations just by doing some small technical changes, big tick, job done. So this is a bit of a breakdown of some of the stuff that the teams delivered, and bearing in mind there's only 12 people that are doing this, so for those 400 changes, 12 people, and 3 of those are managers. We kind of grouped it in, and this is where JIRA starts to come in. We grouped our opportunities that we found by lots of different categories that we could all build within JIRA and track it all through. So the delivery stream was one of them, and that's kind of the top section of the graph. So the nows, the serve nows, are what we call the things that the team will do when they find it on site. They don't need anybody else to help them. They get in, they find something that needs to be changed, and they just do it. The NPCs, non-project changes, are things that they need to call on their colleagues or their ex-colleagues back in IT to help deliver. So there's a little bit of assistance needed, but it's still very fast turnaround. The service improvement programs and orders are not really stuff we're looking for, although we do get a few of those through because they tend to be the really big stuff, so we tend to find those and just park it. But the small stuff then at the bottom side of the graph shows the types of things that we do. So the majority is minor technical change. There is some stuff that's process. There's a lot of stuff that's just pure education. You know, in a company the size of ours, about 15,000 people, God knows how many thousand applications, simply astounding how many people just don't know how to use the applications that run their day jobs. And we did do some major stuff, but that's major as in slightly bigger, not genuine major, and we did put in a few new systems, so it kind of tails off nicely in terms of what we expected. To give a bit of context about the type of change as well, for those of you that were in Scott's keynote this morning, he demonstrated improved interaction between JIRA products and fields being automatically filled in. It's that sort of thing that we've been looking for to implement. We've done a lot of our automation changes are of that ilk. When you've got customer service agents on the phone with customers, they're using multiple different systems, and they have to key in the same bits of information into each one. Just pre-populating can save so much time. When you've got a call center of 1,500 people, and that's all they do, you can save a lot of time over a year. So, the other side, so if we proved that we delivered the value and simplified the business, did we prove that they loved us for doing it? Yes, we did. So NPS, Net Promoter Score, does everybody know what NPS is? Okay, very simply, when you buy something, a product or a service, and you get sent, sometimes in paper form, more likely as an email, a survey, and there was normally one question in it that will be worded, would you recommend that product to your friends, family, pets, whatever? Scored on a range of 1 to 10. If you score that survey as a 9 or a 10, you're classed as a promoter, so you love whatever you bought. If you score it as a 7 or 8, you're classed as actually you don't give a monkeys. And if you score 6 or less, then basically you're classed as a detractor, so you really don't like them. And then the Net Promoter Score is the proportion of promoters less the proportion of detractors. So it's basically how much would your general customer base recommend you. So the irony is, if you send out 1,000 surveys and everybody scores you an 8, your Net Promoter Score is still 0. So you've got to have some 9s and 10s. Net Promoter Score for field teams for the first year was about plus 77 at the moment, and there is no wood to touch. We're plus 92, so we certainly did prove that we could get the buy-in of the business in doing this type of exercise. And I think in honesty, a lot of that was down to the fact that we didn't go in and say, we want to strip out CapEx, we want to simplify your business, we want to do lots of nasty things to you. We simply walked in and said, we think we've given you some duff technology, we'd like to fix it. And guess how many of them said no? Well, none of them. Technology is our problem, so they really wanted us to fix it. So therefore, they all let us in the door. Right, in terms of how we did it, and I won't go through all of this slide, just to pick out a few points. I've already talked about the 3 field teams, so that's the gold, the silver and the red stripe. But the important thing here is very much backed by a huge IT department to help make it deliver in the background. And some outsourced partners. We use Netcracker and Tata for a lot of our development as well. And we've started to talk a lot about the actual calendar, so all the visits to all the various functions are organised on a calendar, so the 3 teams will kind of pick out 3 items, 3 business functions at a time and just rotate that. But the most important part, which is starting to get into the interesting bit, is where JIRA actually fits in. So the bottom bit is our delivery process, all run by JIRA. So the month that the team will spend on site with the business function is basically organised into 1 week of observation. So 1 week of the team sitting with business people, watching how they use the systems and looking for things that could just be made better. So we're not asking them what's wrong, we're kind of observing and finding out creative ways to make it better. They capture all those items in JIRA regardless of whether they're good ones, bad ones or indifferent, so we've got a record of it. And then through the second week where they start to analyse the ins and outs of each item, work out which ones are quite expensive to do, which ones are quite just difficult to do, and basically whittle it down to the set that they'd really like to try and tackle. Those are then assigned to the team members. They follow it all through using normal JIRA workflow to get them all closed and delivered, job done. So I'll come on to a little bit more about how JIRA does that, I think then in the next slide. JIRA. So, our JIRA system was implemented probably within about 3 weeks from us deciding that we needed something to try and manage this. When we piloted the overall process, we used spreadsheets and it was an absolute nightmare. We just couldn't do it. We only had 130 items out of the pilot to try and track with one team for the pilot, and trying to track it in a spreadsheet was just didn't work. So we really quickly identified that we needed something to help us. One of the other development teams within Virgin Media was already using JIRA and its true capacity for defect tracking. We had a quick look, knew that was going to work, got it hosted, set up, configured, ready to run before we hit the ground in the January with the actual program live. We have done quite an amount of configuration to JIRA, not from a workflow perspective, but certainly from a fields perspective, dashboards and how we do the whole command and control. So I'll walk you through that. So we have, you can start to see here, we have 4 different tabs of mainly customized information. The key first one is the business area that they're in. So every time an opportunity is tracked, we have to know who we were talking to, which business function, which location. The project tells us the overall context of the exercise, so that tells us where the opportunity came from. Next set is then the schedule. So some of the fields are kind of already built into JIRA. So we've got the due date, which drives everything. If an item's given a due date, that means we plan to have a go at it. We don't complete everything we have a go at. Sometimes they kind of fall by the wayside for lots of good reasons. But if it doesn't have a date on it, it just kind of stays parked. So the due date drives the entire process. We also have a few fields for the teams to kind of status how it's tracking along that process, so who's it with, if there are any hold-ups, etc., etc. We also track whether we need to be actually spending money out of our own budget, whether we've got a direct cost for any particular opportunity or whether it's going to be developed in-house, and we work out which team it's going to go to and their efforts, so the amount that we're going to call on them, and all that's put into the schedule. The last one, and the more complicated one, although I don't think all the fields are shown on here, is the benefits side. So I said we track benefits by time saved, money generated, and there are a few other types as well. And we also status the benefit itself, as in, have we still kind of working it out, has it been signed off by the business, etc., etc. The only thing JIRA doesn't do for us is do the calculation. So we track time saving in terms of the amount of time we take off a task, how many people are doing that task, how many times they do it a day, but we then have to get somebody to do the math to work it out, to put in the system, and then all the benefits come through the reports. So a lot of extra fields. We change our custom fields in JIRA quite regularly. The teams will come up with an idea that they want to start to implement, so we'll have a quick chat about it. If it feels like a good thing to track, then we'll just put it in and run with that. So the flexibility to be able to change it whenever we like is fantastic. This just shows how we use the dashboards to basically have 3 different perspectives of every plan. So every team, for every visit, for each project, has their own plan. The plan is broken down into the stuff that they've still got left to do, the stuff that they've done, and the stuff that's parked, the stuff that they're not planning to tackle. And for those 3 groups, they appear in 3 different perspectives. One of kind of the majority of the details, one that focuses on the benefit columns, and one that focuses on the schedule columns. So depending on where we are in the review cycle, so when the teams are on their calls with me every week, I've got the same view that they're looking at in JIRA of all their opportunities. We know whether we're focusing on benefits, we know whether we're focusing on schedule, and the whole process of managing the delivery side just works absolutely fantastically. From a command and control point of view also, we've got quite a heavy reliance on this type of screen. So in terms of the project overview, because all the items will vary quite significantly in terms of the amount of net benefit that they'll drive, the heat bars underneath each project give us a great indication of those projects that are delivering a great amount of value versus the ones that are delivering smaller amounts of value. So that gives us a great tracker from a high level. The actual schedule then, in terms of the lower graph, the calendar, gives us a view on when items are dropping. In theory, everything should have a Friday date. Doesn't matter what day of the week it's going in, they should all be collected on a Friday. So there are some errors in here, and I would hesitate to guarantee that that Friday at the bottom was never ever going to deliver 45 opportunities on the same day. But that aside, we do use these to make sure that we don't have too many changes going in at the same time, because at the end of the day, that just doesn't happen. So all those customizations, all those command and control things within JIRA enable us to manage the entire program and keep it absolutely on track. And it probably contributes quite significantly to the volume of throughput that we do get for technical change. 400 last year, 400 plus for this year. So what's next for us? So they want us to deliver more value. We have kind of proved it 2 years running. It's starting to worry us that we've done a lot of the low-hanging fruit, a lot of the easy stuff, but they also want us to go a bit bigger. So not just focusing on the tiny things, but starting to run more mini projects. And we've got an extra team now that's supposed to focus on the slightly larger stuff, hoping that if the project scales, the benefits will also proportionally scale too. In terms of support from Atlassian, we are looking at Confluence. We had a look at Confluence about 6 months ago, but that was the same time that we started to implement an in-house tool. I won't tell you who it's from because it was absolutely shit, and we've just about killed it now, hopefully. So hopefully now we'll be able to start looking at Confluence again properly. We're also going to look at JIRA Agile. Particularly with the new team focusing on slightly larger exercises, the agile approach should hopefully fit well with that. It may still fit for kind of the base field team approach too, but we certainly want to trial that with the new team. And I think that's me done for my bit, so I'll say thank you. I will be around for questions later, but I'd like to hand over to Matt and Graeme, who are going to give you a different perspective on making a big difference.
Hey guys. Oh, that's loud. Thanks, Nick. That was a great talk about how JIRA has optimized his business. I'm going to be talking about a few other ways that we've used JIRA and other Atlassian products to optimize different processes. All right. So, as Nick said, my name's Matthew. I've been working at Atlassian for 6.5 years. I work as a Confluence developer relations engineer. So that means I get to work with plugins and a lot of cool customers like yourself. And I'm going to hand over to Graeme a bit later. It's got Graeme's Twitter up there. He's only got 1 follower, so if you can all jump on your phone and follow him, that would make him feel a lot better. All right, so I'm going to start off in a second. I just want to say 2 things first. I'm really jet lagged, so I might fall asleep at any moment, so stay on your toes. And secondly, I promise not to use the word crikey in my presentation at all. Crikey, no one laughed. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 3 things today. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the Atlassian Foundation. Who's heard of the Atlassian Foundation? A couple people, okay. Who was at the campfire chat with the CEOs last night? Okay, not too many, that's good. I can reuse this story, excellent. I'm also going to talk about JIRA Service Desk. Did you guys hear about JIRA Service Desk today? Who's excited about JIRA Service Desk? Yeah, that's pretty cool. I want to show you a special way that we've implemented that to help the Atlassian Foundation. Then later on in the talk, I'm going to hand over Graeme. Graeme's going to talk about how we've customized JIRA to make a difference in the philanthropic world. He's going to talk about that in more detail. So firstly, let me talk about the Atlassian Foundation. As I said, the Atlassian Foundation is the philanthropic arm of Atlassian. It works on a 1% model. 1% of Atlassian annual profit, 1% of employee time, 1% of Atlassian equity and software through community licenses is donated to non-profits and not-for-profits in the not-for-profit sector. It's a real big part of our culture, and we're really proud to be part of it. There are 2 employee contribution schemes that I want to highlight. Firstly, an Atlassian donation matching scheme. Every employee at Atlassian gets donations up to $1,000 matched every year. Also, the Atlassian Foundation Leave, which is an employee volunteering program. It's paid leave for Atlassian. All full-time staff will get 5 days that they can take and apply to any charity or not-for-profit work that they want to do. There's really cool things. So the Atlassian Foundation is run by the Atlassian Foundation Council. There's 16 members of Atlassian across 3 different continents that coordinate and focus our efforts across the organization. It allows us to multiply our impact in certain areas. Graeme and I are both members of the Foundation Council, so if you've got any questions later about how we run the foundation, feel free to come and ask us. A little while ago, the foundation sat down and decided that what we wanted to do is focus our efforts into a certain area. We asked everyone around Atlassian, we asked the Foundation Council, and we voted on a particular area. We want to give the youth of the world access to a world-class education to break the poverty cycle. We all felt at Atlassian that education had helped us in our career, and we wanted to be able to give this back to everyone in the world. It's a pretty big goal, don't you think? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Who's heard of Room to Read? Room to Read charity. A couple of hands. Room to Read are an awesome charity. They build libraries, they build schools, they publish local language books in a lot of countries, a lot of third world countries, and we're proud to be a sponsor of those. Now, Scott told you a little story about that. I'm going to steal his story and tell it to you again. A couple of years ago, Mike read the Leaving Microsoft to Change the World book, written by the founder of Room to Read, John Wood, and he was really inspired by that, as I read it a few years later. Mike decided, and Atlassian decided, that we would sell $5 5 of starter licenses for our products and give all of that money to Room to Read. So we did that. We had a bit of a bet internally to Atlassian about how much money we might make over the first week. It ranged between $5,000 and $25,000. No one really knew. The truth is, we raised over $100,000, and that's pretty cool. We raised $112,000 in $5 increments in 5 days. That's really impressive. But what's more impressive is what that's translated to 4 years later. I want to put the numbers up now. That's $2.5 million 4 years later. We've built 6 schools, 150 libraries, and we've given an education to 1,500 girls that wouldn't normally have access to an education. That is a really cool story, and it's really proud to be part of it. It's a success story for the Atlassian Foundation. But not everything that we do is a success story. There's a lot of reasons why Atlassian staff can't take foundation leave. They can't go through the process of donation matching. And we did a bit of a survey. We asked a lot of people around the Atlassian office, and we asked them about why this was the case. How can we make this better? And it's pretty obvious. Everyone's too busy. The process that we had implemented around how to do donation matching was really hard. It was confusing, it was cumbersome, and it didn't tie everyone and all of 3 offices around the world together. So I'm going to talk to you about how we made it easier. And I'm going to tell you how JIRA Service Desk made that easier. And then Graeme's going to talk later through Make a Diff, how we made it more efficient. So firstly, making it easier. All right, everyone started with a spreadsheet, didn't they? They started their complicated business process with a spreadsheet that looks something like this. It's got all sorts of useful information about the total donations that we've done. And it served a purpose for a little while, but if you start to take into consideration the fact that we've got offices around the world running in different languages, we're running with different currencies, different definitions and legal definitions of what's a charity, and different rules about how we can take this home, it didn't work. So we go forward a little bit and we'll talk about JIRA. JIRA solves many of these problems. JIRA gives you an issue creation process, a workflow, and some tracking around that. But for this particular case, there's a lot of problems with it. And I've highlighted a few on the slide. There's a lot of problems. Firstly, creating an issue. I want to create a request to match my donation. I don't want to create an issue. I don't know what project to put it in. What's a component? A component doesn't make sense for this. An attachment, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just going to close that and not do it. It's too hard. So, JIRA Service Desk. It's really helped us with this problem. Firstly, the portal page. The portal page is the landing page for all of the Atlassian staff that want to go through this process. It's written in the right language, in the right context, and it accelerates this process. As you can see on this page, I'm talking about donating to charities. I'm not talking about versions, fixed versions. It doesn't make sense for a donation matching scheme. This is the JIRA Service Desk creation page for a donation matching screen. It's got 5 or 6 fields on it. It doesn't have, the other screen had about 9 or 10. So this is a lot simpler. It's a lot more specific. All of the questions and the prompts are in the right context. I'm asking you what charity you donated to. I'm asking you how much you donated to. I don't care about versions and components. It doesn't map well to a JIRA process. But JIRA Service Desk has helped us do that. This is a quote from Melissa Beaumont-Lee. She is a manager of the Atlassian Foundation. And she's already told us, we've had this process in play now for about a month. And as I said before, I'm a Confluence developer, so it's really cool to be standing up here and talking about all the awesome stuff the JIRA Service Desk team have done and taken all the credit for it, so thank you for that. JIRA Service Desk has made the process of logging volunteer leave and donation matching easy. This has also allowed us to do reporting on it easier, and it's also increased the accuracy of our lodgement. We had a group activity a little while ago, and I think there was something like 20 people involved, and only about 5 of them went through the process of actually lodging the leave. It's going to make it easier and a lot more accurate. So I've talked to you about how JIRA Service Desk has simplified this process, made it more accurate, and accelerated the process and driven up donation matching. So I'm going to hand over to Graeme now, and Graeme's going to talk about how we've increased our efficiency. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. So Matt's already told you a little bit about our foundation leave. 11%, right, is not a very big number. Of all of the foundation leave that was available to Atlassian last year, that's how much we used. Now, no matter how you look at it, it's not very good, right? If I had 100 beer bottles, only 11 of them would be full of beer. We like beer and we like the foundation, so this is a problem that we need to address. The consolation is, though, there's other companies out there who also have employee volunteer programs, and they also have these kind of utilization problems. So what can we do about it? We need to solve this problem outside Atlassian as well. Let's look at what we've done so far through our foundation leave. We've done some pretty cool things. We've taken some dogs for a walk, we've packed some boxes, planted some trees in areas that needed them, we've mentored students in a primary school, and we've also built a website for one of our local charities. So if you look at all these cool things we've done, only one of them really utilized our core skill. And if you think about it, that's probably the way we can give back with the most value, right? If I'm trying to donate my time, it's much more valuable if I'm using the skills that I'm paid for. So this project actually came about by a charity coming to us and saying, hey, it'd be really cool if you gave us $100,000, we need to build this website. And we said, well, we can probably build that for you. And so we did. We had about 10 volunteers. They used their volunteer time, and they built it. So they saved the charity $100,000. We've got other stories like this coming through from charities. A lot of charities want help, but we don't really have a good way of dealing with this. So the foundation leave doesn't get used. A lot of charities struggle like this. They need a website built. They need help with their IT infrastructure. Not very many charities are tech savvy. They don't really have the time or the money or the knowledge for this sort of thing. And you can understand why. If I'm donating money to my favorite charity, I'd rather donate it towards the good work that they do rather than towards their IT infrastructure. Then on the other side of the coin, you've got companies like Atlassian who have employee volunteer programs. And people are really excited about this. Personally, it was one of the reasons I wanted to join Atlassian. It's a great opportunity to get to do something that you really care about, get out of the office for 5 days a year and get paid for it. The problem is, people don't know where to find these opportunities. Myself, my first year at Atlassian, I didn't take a single day of volunteer leave. I was really upset about this, but at the end of the day, I didn't know where to find something to work on. I could have spent all 5 days just getting in touch with a charity and finding out what they needed doing. So this is where Make a Diff comes along. It's an Atlassian initiative, and it's a platform, a crowdsourcing platform, where volunteers can get in touch with charities and where charities can publish their needs. It's built on top of JIRA, and it's just launched. So let's talk a little bit about crowdsourcing. Who in the room has heard about crowdsourcing? Cool, right. So it's kind of like crowdfunding, like what Kickstarter do, raise money, except it's using people's time instead, more like what Wikipedia do. You get a whole bunch of people together, except the thing is they don't actually have to be together in the same location. They can be anywhere in the world. You don't have any time constraints or geographic constraints like a conventional team would have. And this means that you can really tap into a wealth of skills. Another key thing about Make a Diff is that everything is open source. So this means that anyone in the world can contribute. There's a very low barrier to entry because you don't need permission to do anything. You automatically have access to the code. This also has another benefit of promoting reuse between projects. Now, a lot of charities have similar technology needs, and what doesn't happen in the industry often is for them to actually talk together about it. So with this platform, we can take projects that have been done and reuse them on for other charities. So this is what Make a Diff looks like at the moment. It's a JIRA instance, but what we've done is put the focus on the projects. Right? We're not talking about issues just yet. We want people to jump in there and find the projects that they care about. So we've customized the homepage. So you can easily see the visuals there. You can find things you're interested in. You click on them, you find more information about the projects and the charities that you want to donate your time towards. This is now what a project page looks like in JIRA on Make a Diff. We've stripped out all of the complexity. Right? We've taken the bits that we really need, but then hidden everything else. JIRA is incredibly powerful, but anything we didn't need just got in users' ways. We've also embedded a Kanban board in every project. So when a project gets created, the Kanban board is automatically created, and that's the way that people look at issues. It's a really simple visual way for people to see what work needs doing, what work's in progress, and what work has been done. Looking a bit under the hood here of the Make a Diff plugin, we've used servlet filters to redirect the pages we want. For the new pages, we've used webwork actions. We use active objects to persist any data outside what you can normally store in JIRA. And we've used an iframe for that agile board that you just saw. So Make a Diff was built entirely with volunteers. The first thing we did was we had a code camp in the Atlassian Sydney office. We had 30 university students come in the office on the weekend. They camped out. It was great fun. And that was where the first code was cut for Make a Diff. After that, to make it live, we had 2 hack days in San Francisco office, 2 hack days in the Sydney office, where we basically got about 10 people in a room together and just worked on the things that needed doing. To get this done, we used a few Atlassian tools which were really valuable to us. We used JIRA Agile to keep track of all the issues that needed doing. We used Bamboo so we could have our builds, have our deployments, and we used HipChat as well. HipChat was really useful, particularly across the different geographies, but also when everyone's in the same room together, you create a HipChat room, you can all just talk about things that are happening. You can ask, rather than disrupting everyone's workflow by talking out loud, you can just mention something in the room, and things happen a lot more easily. So let's talk now about the impact that Make a Diff has had. We've already increased our volunteering opportunities by running Make a Diff as a volunteer program. But not only that, it opens up now the possibility for more volunteering. We can get more charities involved now. They can put their projects on, and people can find things that they want to volunteer about. Now, Atlassian is very serious about this investment. As I said, a charity came to us and asked for $100,000 to build a website. So what we thought about was, okay, let's say we had $100,000 to give to a charity. What would that actually mean for them? And we found that each charity had a similar kind of need. They wanted some sort of website build or some sort of infrastructure built in their IT. So what we did instead was we took that money and we've employed a business analyst who's going to work with 3 of our local Sydney charities, and across that, 9 projects. So all of a sudden, our money gets multiplied. By having someone at the start there, talking to the charities, teasing out the requirements, we can then get volunteers in to do the work for free. And ultimately what this means is that charities get to continue what they're doing and making the world a better place. So, as I said, Make a Diff is now live. You can go to makeadiff.org and check it out if you'd like. If you go to the About page, there's a really cool video. We had one of the local charities, a guy named Mikey Lung came in and he filmed our hack day, which was really cool. He's a really good guy. Over time, we want to develop a worldwide community of volunteers here. Just out of interest, who here has ever volunteered for something? Cool, all right, we've got some generous people in the room. What about, who has an employee volunteer program at their company that they work for? Okay, that's really good. Who here has actually taken a day of leave through that program? Maybe like 4. Okay, so yeah, we see the same kind of problem, right, at Atlassian. So you guys as well could jump onto Make a Diff, find the projects that you care about, and start using this time that's given to you. And then, as I said also, over time we can develop a stockpile of reusable solutions. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every time we do a charity project, which again will make things much more efficient. So let's look back to the problem that Matt talked about. It's too hard and I'm too busy. Well, through JIRA Service Desk, we've made it much easier for people to lodge their request for donation matching and volunteer leave. And through Make a Diff, we've made people's time much more efficient to find the volunteering opportunities they care about. So thanks a lot for listening. I know it's tempting to go out and grab a beer at the moment, but it's really nice of you to stick around to the end. At this point, I'd like to invite Nick and Matt back up on stage. We've seen some great stories here about how you can make a difference in your enterprise using JIRA. So now we'd like to get some questions if there's any from the audience.
And we got mics for you, so if you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get one of these in your face. You want to drink beer? Okay.
So you said the participation rate was at 11% before. Now that you've made it more efficient and easier to do, what are you at now?
We haven't really checked. I don't think we've made much of a difference yet because we're still so early in this program. I'm trying to remember when Code Camp was. That was about March, April.
Yeah, about March, April.
So what we're expecting is this financial year, we'll see that number go much higher. What we're aiming for is to double it. We want to see it at 22% June 2014.
Anybody else? For Nick? For Matt? No questions? Everybody wants to get a drink?
Crikey.
So this is around the Virgin project implementing JIRA. So you mentioned that you do the financial calculations outside of JIRA, but there are plugins and customizations that you could have done so that the calculations were done within JIRA. Can you talk about why you decided not to maybe customize it?
Am I on? Yeah. So we've got an on-demand solution. Now, I have had a hunt around for stuff that might plug in to do the calculation, but I haven't found any. So if I'm missing stuff, I would love somebody to point it out, because that would be great. If we could do more stuff in JIRA Direct, that would be brilliant. Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, so I think we'll thank you, these guys, one more round of applause. Thank you so much.